Good evening and welcome. My name is Jocelyn Hazen and I'm a project manager on VTA's transit-oriented development team. Thank you for joining us tonight to talk about a potential opportunity at our Winchester station. We do have a full agenda, so let's jump right in. Next slide, please. Please note that we do have live Spanish translation available throughout tonight's meeting. To join the Spanish channel, please click on the circle or globe icon at the bottom of the screen. Please also note that you can jump between channels throughout the meeting. Next slide. We want to start by saying welcome. We are joined here tonight by Winchester neighbors, transit riders, City of Campbell staff, County of Santa Clara staff. And we'd also like to welcome Ann Bybee, Vice Mayor of Campbell, as well as Councilmember Gibbons, who are with us this evening. Would either of you like to pop on and say hello?
Vice Mayor? Is she on?
Yes, I believe she is.
Vice Mayor doesn't want it. It's okay. We're good. Just thank you for coming.
Okay. So I'll just say a few words then, if I may. Thank you for the introduction to coming to Campbell with the VTA Transit-Oriented Development staff and representatives of the Santa Clara County Office of Supportive Housing. Welcome and thank you to the Campbell community members who are in attendance this evening. The City of Campbell has a history of supporting housing. During the redevelopment agency era, there were more than 30 programs providing housing for seniors, families, teachers, and public safety personnel and workers. Campbell has a strong program even today in support of affordable housing. But the reality is that without redevelopment agency funds, the city has very limited ability to provide or assist with housing development. Campbell has never turned down a housing project. However, that doesn't mean that housing is available at affordable rates for either home ownership or rent. I'm very hopeful, the council and the city staff are very hopeful that this process and discussion with VTA's transit-oriented development is with the Campbell community and its neighbors this evening and will result in the possibility of providing a substantive number of the kind of housing that we need in our community to support our fellow residents and workers. I look forward to the conversation this evening and more to follow as this concept is explored at the Winchester Transit Station. And I look forward to having conversations shared between meetings and people continuing to participate. So thank you very much. And I look forward to the conversation this evening, along with Vice Mayor Bybee, staff, and our community.
Great, thank you so much. It's great to have you here with us tonight. We would like to take a moment to acknowledge the important history of this site and of our entire region. VTA acknowledges that we're talking about a project on the ancestral lands of the Ohlone, specifically the Tamian and Muwekma Ohlone tribes. We acknowledge them as the first peoples of this land, those who lived here before our missionaries and settlers displaced them, and still today, they remain thriving members of our Bay Area communities. It is possible that historical and cultural resources may be discovered when VTA begins development projects, and VTA will make the utmost efforts to preserve those remains and ensure they are returned to the communities most connected to them. Next slide. So for tonight's meeting, we're going to start with introductions and getting to know each other. Then we'll jump into goals and background information, followed by talking about the benefits of transit-oriented development, as well as the need for affordable housing. Then we have some really fun and engaging activities that we can all participate in. And finally, we'll open it up to Q&A. Next slide.
Give the translators a sec to catch up.
Great. So I would like to start by introducing my colleagues that are with us. From VTA, we have Jolene Bradford, who is with our public communications team, as well as Jesse O'Malley Solis, who is our TOD program manager. From IBI Group, who is our TOD and planning consultant, we have Roberto Jenkins and Oliver Hartleben. From the City of Campbell, we have Rob Eastwood, the Community Development Director. And from the County Office of Supportive Housing, we have Consuelo Hernandez and Natalie Monk. So now we'd like to take a minute to get to know you. We have a series of poll questions that will pop up on your screen. These are meant to be informative and just to tell us a little bit about who we have on the meeting, since unfortunately we can't all be together live in a room. Your specific response will not be shared, and if you don't see your particular answer, you can type it in the chat. Once you've selected your answer or answers, you can go ahead and close the poll window. So poll number 1, please describe yourself. Do you live, work, or go to school near the Winchester station? You can check all that apply.
Seeing some pretty good participation.
Yeah, let's give it one more minute and go ahead and close the poll. Okay, so it looks like the majority of you live near the Winchester station, followed by quite a few who don't live or work near the station. For the next poll, if you haven't already, you can go ahead and close that window. The next poll is regarding your living conditions. Are you a renter, a homeowner, or unhoused? Please make your selection and go ahead and close the poll window. Okay, looks like we have a good majority. And it looks like the majority of people on our meeting are a homeowner, followed by quite a few who are renters. And for our final poll, we'd love to hear how you get around. Do you mostly drive, bike, take transit, walk, park and ride at Winchester Station? Or is there another form of transportation that you commonly use? Please check all that apply. And if you don't see the answer that best suits you, please type it in the chat. Great. So it looks like the majority, about 80%, primarily drive, followed by quite a few who walk at 58% and about 45% that take transit. Great. Thank you so much for participating in the polls. Next slide. Let's quickly go over our virtual meeting agreements and etiquette. Let's be sure to treat each other with kindness, respect, and consideration, and to remember that everyone's input matters. We do have a limited amount of time tonight, so let's be sure to stay on track. And if you have questions at any time, please use the chat. Also, a note that we will be recording tonight's meeting and it will be posted on our website. BTA staff in attendance will remove any participants that are exhibiting demeaning, discriminatory, or harassing behavior. Next slide. So as I mentioned, you can use the chat at any time with your questions. We will be answering questions throughout the meeting as they come in. If you follow the instructions on as shown on the screen, click the chat icon at the bottom and then make sure that your audience is set to everyone. Next, I'm going to pass it over to Rob Eastwood to talk a little bit about Campbell's plan for housing.
Great. So just a mic check. I'm using a different laptop. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Eastwood. I'm the Community Development Director here in Campbell. I'm here tonight to connect some of the dots between the housing element update that Campbell's doing and this project. So some of you might have seen our notices and been involved. Back in October, we started an outreach campaign on updating our housing element. So every 8 years, we're required by state law to update our general plan housing element to plan for sufficient housing for our population. And as part of that, we have to plan for 3,000 housing units. And so for the past 4 or 5 months, we've been going out in the community, talking to folks about the need for housing, different housing types, and a lot of discussions on where to plan for housing, different places to put it, different densities, different housing types. So we've done a lot of outreach starting in October. We've gone to our commission and council a few times. And those tracking that effort, we're going to the Planning Commission starting this Thursday and to the City Council next Tuesday, where we're hoping to get a final list at this point in the process of housing opportunity sites where Campbell is designating housing will go. Now, connecting that to this process, as Councilmember Gibbons mentioned, Campbell's been actively looking for opportunities for affordable housing. And in the housing element, housing opportunity sites that we've selected, one of them is this site. It's the VTA Winchester site. So the draft designation for this site is 75 dwelling units per acre. That's a pretty high density. It's a density that's pretty higher, much higher than what traditionally has been in Campbell. But given it's near the light rail station, right on the light rail station, we think it's the appropriate place to put higher density housing development. So with that, again, if folks want to track along on the planning for all the housing sites in Campbell, we invite you to come. Our meetings will continue throughout next year. Again, we have a Plan Commission meeting this Thursday, a City Council meeting next Tuesday. And again, one result of that is folks like VTA coming along and doing some planning for housing on sites they own. So with that, I'll pass it back to the VTA staff.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jolene Bradford, and I'm with VTA's Community Outreach and Public Engagement team, and I'm going to share about goals and background information. So I'm so glad that you guys were all here this evening. We are actually here because VTA is considering a transit-oriented development at the Winchester station. VTA has partnered with Santa Clara County's Office of Supported Housing, and which administers the 2016 Measure A Affordable Housing Bond. This partnership encourages the development of affordable housing. The development VTA is considering is 100% affordable housing, which will be built by high-quality developers overseen by VTA. What we hope to accomplish in this meeting is to share about development opportunities around transit and gather your feedback. Your input this evening will help shape the development project. So we're at the very beginning of the process, which is the outreach phase, starting with stakeholder engagement and this evening's community meeting. We can find out what is important to you, the community, and what your vision is for the area. In March, we'll go to VTA's board for review and approval to release a request for offering to the developer community. We anticipate selecting a developer later this year. During this time, we will continue to engage the community and can present information to your neighborhood associations and local groups. Once we've selected the developer, we'll hold another community meeting to introduce them. The developer will then lead another round of outreach to the community, where you will have the opportunity to provide further input. During this phase, the project will be studied for access, environmental, traffic, and parking impacts. And then we'll go to the city for the department reviews. From there, we'll seek Planning Commission approval. If approved, the building permits will be sought. Once the permits are issued, construction will begin. This is really when you'll start seeing physical changes to the area. And that'll happen until the building and the area improvements are complete and the project is finished. So you may be asking, why is VTA here talking about developing their transit station? Well, let me give you a little bit about what VTA does. When people think about VTA, they often think about bus and light rail, but VTA does more than just fixed route public transit. VTA is a special or an independent special district, which is governed by a board of directors. The board is made up of 12 local and county office holders. So this wheel shows all the ways that VTA touches transportation in Santa Clara County. We construct transit facilities like the new Milpitas and Berryessa BART stations. We're also responsible for local highway improvements like the 101 Blossom Hill interchange, which will help traffic flow more smoothly. And we encourage the integration of transportation and land use planning so we can design a community that works for everyone. Next slide, thank you. So our core transit service, our bus, light rail, and the ADA paratransit service. VTA also has its transit-oriented development program, which really focuses on land use. When VTA chooses and develops its sites for TOD, we're committed to being a good neighbor to the communities around the project. VTA will remain the property owner over the life of the project and has a long-term commitment to the success of the development. As a good neighbor, we're committed to providing accessible transportation to all, promoting transit-oriented developments, and incorporating community benefits into our TOD projects. We want our TOD projects to provide benefits to neighbors, not just new residents. Some of these benefits can be greater pedestrian, bicycle, and transit opportunities. Part of the reason that we ask you to join us tonight is that we really want to hear what your priorities are and what you'd like to see as part of a new development. We can give that information to the developer who will eventually build the project. This way, we can work towards making the Winchester TOD project something that you'd like to have as a neighbor. Next slide. I'll now turn the time over to Roberto, who will share information about the benefits of transit-oriented development.
Thank you, Jolene. So as we've been mentioning, what we're proposing today is a TOD project, and we wanted to get into what TOD or transit-oriented development really is. So it's basically an urban planning strategy that prioritizes both pedestrians and bike-friendly neighborhoods in and around transit. So it's usually a mix of uses, including housing or commercial as well as open space. It's typically located within a half mile of quality public transit, which is the case for this Winchester site, which is adjacent to VTA's light rail and bus systems. And as Jolene had introduced, it's also focused on being pedestrian and bike friendly. In the TOD, the first letter T is transit, or how you get from one place to another. This can include systems like the transit lines that are existing on the site today with light rail and bus at Winchester. And it also includes items like sidewalk and road improvements to improve that connectivity. The second letter in TOD is O, which is open space, or the space in between buildings. And some examples of that can be transit plazas or bicycle and pedestrian trails that kind of gather and create community spaces. And finally, the D in TOD is development, which stands for the buildings themselves. Those can usually be single family or townhomes at the smaller scale of density. And depending on the site and conditions, we're also used to seeing high-rise residential towers and other high-rise commercial uses. Hitting on a few of the community aspects that Jolene mentioned again, transit-oriented development in general, it helps increase transit ridership by making transit more convenient and accessible and interconnected to the neighborhood. It reduces congestion and other greenhouse gas emissions because it prioritizes other trips that aren't cars. It promotes vibrant community spaces and also increases access to jobs, housings, and other opportunities. And important to clarify there that it's meant to be for all income levels, not just one specific one. And finally, that it includes public spaces and parks for the community to enjoy. So as a recap towards the end of the presentation today, we'll go through the 2 exercises that we previewed, and that will be an opportunity to hear from you, the community, which of these TOD aspects you value the most. Some of the ones that we just wanted to highlight again are the inclusion of housing to help the housing crisis that California is facing, the inclusion of parks and open space. And one thing that we thought was really important for Campbell and Winchester is the highlighting of local character and making sure that those elements are preserved. So with that, I will now pass it back to Jocelyn from VTA for our section 4.
Great, thank you. Now we'd like to talk a little bit about the need for affordable housing in our region and more specifically in our community. Next slide. So this graphic compares local rents to how much people earn. So Santa Clara County is one of the most expensive counties in the US, as well as other counties in our region, such as Marin, San Mateo, and San Francisco counties. As you can see in this graphic, a household needs to make a minimum of $122,000 a year or $10,000 a month in order to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Also on this slide, you can see that a librarian in Santa Clara County makes roughly $50,000 a year, and an entry-level position teaching in Campbell Unified School District pays roughly $63,000 a year. So if we take a sample household, say a husband and wife and their 2 kids, the wife was your checkout clerk during your most recent trip to Target, and her husband works in construction. And so if you take the retail salary and the construction salary, the 2 of them together earn about $103,000 a year with their 2 kids. With their joint annual salary, they still can't afford a 2-bedroom apartment here. And that goes to say also, of course, the people who work full-time just above minimum wage. For example, our trash collectors, the person who washes or details your car, and the janitors who clean out our offices. Even if you had a nurse's salary and a restaurant host, they still couldn't afford a 2-bedroom apartment here. So I'd just like to take a moment, and you can raise your hand through the raise hand feature on Zoom, or if you have your camera on, you can go ahead and physically raise your hand. Let's see a show of hands if you have any friends, family, coworkers, or grown children who have had to leave the area because of the high cost of living. Okay, so I see quite a few hands going up. So it looks like quite a few of us know people who have unfortunately had to relocate due to the very high cost of living here. Next slide. So in 2016, VTA's board adopted an affordable housing policy in response to the housing crisis that we're facing. The goal is that 35% of housing built on VTA property will be affordable. We also have a standard that requires a minimum of 20% affordability on housing projects. But in order to meet that overall 35% portfolio goal, we will need to have some projects with higher levels or even 100% affordable housing. So we've partnered with the Santa Clara County Office of Supportive Housing to build some affordable housing on our sites, including our Winchester station. The potential project that we're talking about tonight would be a 100% affordable housing rental project. Now I'm going to pass it back to Roberto to go talk a little bit about the site and then jump into our exercises.
Thank you, Jocelyn. So yeah, we're heading now into section 5. Before we get into the 2 exercises, we wanted to recap a bit more on the specifics of the site itself. So starting at the regional level, the site we're looking at is the end of the line of VTA's Green Line light rail transit system, which gives the access to downtown San Jose and the rest of the county. And we've seen a couple of chat messages about actually taking that exact ride from Winchester LRT to Sharks games or other activities in the county. If we then zoom into a mid-level local context, The site itself here in red is served by, as I mentioned, the green light rail system, which is the end of the line. The station platforms are at the edge of the site. It is also served by 3 existing bus routes, the 60, 27, 37, and the Express 101. All of those come from the north or the south along Winchester Boulevard and enter the site and create a loop. And what we also wanted to highlight here is both the proximity to downtown Campbell itself up here, which is about a bit over a 15-minute walk, half-mile from the site, and the neighboring conditions, including the St. Lucie Parish and School that you might all be familiar, as well as across the street, Campbell Plaza with Safeway and other local surveying retail. Finally, we wanted to just zoom in a little bit more on this quarter-mile radius. And here you can take a look at the existing bus stops are located along that internal bus loop. And just to clarify that both the existing bus service would be maintained throughout the course of the project, as well as the, I believe, 54 existing regular vehicle transit stalls that exist on the site would be preserved one-to-one along with the TOD development. So it's not a replacement of any of the light rail service, but an enhancing of it. And also along Winchester Boulevard in purple on both sides, there's what VTA calls full bike lanes, which are on the street and protected. Just north of Bud, they kind of transition to bike routes or sharrows, which are more the ones on the lanes themselves. And nearby also to keep in mind is the Los Gatos Creek Trail, and that's a fully protected bike path that's off the street. So with that introduction into the site itself, I'll pass it over to Oliver, who will run us through the 2 exercises.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Roberto. Today, we're going to do 2 online exercises, as was announced before. The first one will focus on what you value as a community, and the second will ask you to identify challenges and areas of opportunity in your community. The insights we gather from these exercises will be conveyed to the developer VTA will hire for the Winchester site project to ensure that your input is considered as part of that project. We will run both exercises on a digital canvas called Mural. It is simple to use. I will walk you through on my screen on how you can access it before we share the link with you. If you don't want to or are uncomfortable participating in the digital canvas, it's fully okay. You can continue on this screen and follow what other participants are doing. Let me start by sharing my screen first. 1 second. One member of my team in a moment will post a link in the chat window that will look like the one that I am sharing currently on the screen. What you will want to do is to click on the link. It will appear in the chat window, not in a Word document like I'm showing, and click on that, and a window will open like the one that you will see in a moment. You will see that you will be assigned a fish, an animal avatar, in my case, a fish. You may want to type in your name, or it's fine if you don't want to, and enter incognito and click on enter as a visitor. What you will see is a series of cards, in this case, 10 cards, and each one of them represents one community value. We're going to go through them in detail. The idea is of this exercise is to prioritize which of these community values you value most. To the left, you will see a series of red dots, which you will use to move and to place the dot on those community values that you value the most. You will get the choice of up to 4 dots. So we'll ask you to select the ones that are the most prioritary to you. I will also want to focus your attention on the right-hand corner where you see a plus and a minus sign, which will allow you to zoom in, or you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse. To pan around, you will excuse me, you will you can left click on your mouse and move around. Let's now get to the cards in more detail before we share the link with you, so that you know which the options are. So value number one is affordable housing. We've been talking a lot about affordable housing already. So you would select this and put a red dot on this one if you value affordable housing options for people in the area in Campbell. Value number two is about vibrant public spaces. Whether you value vibrant, convenient, and safe community gathering spaces like a pocket park or a plaza, etc. Value number three is about safe routes for bicyclists and pedestrians. You would select this one if you value safe and convenient bike connections, especially in the community, within the community. Number four is about easy access to transit. When you value having direct, safe, and convenient connections from transit to the surrounding neighborhoods. So number three and number four are fairly similar. Number three is in general about pedestrian and bicycle connections within the community. And number four is specifically in terms of being able to access transit. Number five is about traffic safety. You would select this if you value reducing car volumes and speed in the area, especially near residential areas, to increase safety, particularly for the elderly and for kids. Let's move now to number six, which is about sustainability. You would select this one if you value reducing building and vehicle emissions in the area through actions that may be directly linked to the building. Number seven is enhancing the local character of Campbell. If you value opportunities for community integration and recognition of local heritage. Number eight is about community resources. When you value having community amenities such as libraries and daycares in the area, if they are not present or if they need to be enhanced. Number nine is about public art. Is if you would value having outdoor public art to give a distinctive character to the neighborhood. It may or may not look like the picture we're showing, but it would be an appropriate piece of public art that the community cherishes. And number 10 is about personal safety and comfort. This is when you value having street landscaping elements, such as lighting, a good lighting, to create safe streets. There, it is similar to number 5, which was about traffic safety, but card number 5 is about safety from car traffic, from vehicular traffic, while number 10 is about your personal safety and comfort. So with that, I think that we are now putting the link in the chat. So Roberto, if you could post the link in the chat, and just as I demonstrated earlier, just click on the link and please log in.
One item I'd highlight, Oliver, is it works best on laptops. If you're on a phone or a tablet, you might have a few issues and you can watch along on the screen.
Yes, and that is a good reminder that if you can't if you can't access, just let us know where to put the dots and we'll do that. Remember, you have up to 4 dots. We recommend that you put the dots on top of the pictures, the photos at the bottom of each card, so that the other participants can read. I know that many of you would select more than 4, but this is an exercise about prioritization. It's not that the other 6 are not important, but which ones we're asking you to select, which ones are critical. If you have any problem in connecting, please type it into the chat window, and one member of our team, either Roberto or Jessica, will help you out in the process. If for whatever reason you're not participating or you don't feel comfortable participating online, you can also type in the number of cards. For example, you can say number 1, number 7, number 8, and number 5, and we will place those dots for you. We see already a lot of activity happening on the screen. Let me make my screen a little bit bigger for the people that are following on the Zoom screen. and not participating. You may also see at the bottom, for the people that are on the digital canvas, that there are 4 or 5 cards at the bottom they are blank cards. So if you believe that we're missing any item, you may add it in there, and you may also put one of your four red dots over there. Yeah, go ahead, Roberto.
We have one person in the chat who posted it. If we could get Jessica to put numbers.
Yeah.
1, 3, 4.
Jessica, if you could help us with that, that'd be great. We'll let it run for 1 or 2 minutes more. You can already see where most of the dots are concentrated. You can see it yourself. And to the right margin, you can see some yellow post-its. So if you want to add some comments to any one of these items or another comment, just feel free just to drag one of these yellow post-its and add your commentary, like I am exemplifying or showing right now. You can do that, of course, too. Let's give it 30 more seconds as I see that that some of the activity has with the red dots has subsided. Probably everyone has put all the dots in it. There's a lot of dots. Usually we count the dots, but here we're gonna just go by visually by seeing where are the most dots concentrated. It appears that from what I see here is that most dots, or the value that is shared amongst the participants, the most is number 1, affordable housing, valuing the ability to provide affordable housing for residents and people that come to the community. And probably in the next tier, it's about safe routes for bicyclists and pedestrians, and personal safety and comfort, which are 2 associated items. And probably in the third tier, it's easy access to transit, traffic safety, and community resources that are needed. We also see quite a bit of comments over here. If this is the first time that all the extra cards are filled in. So if you have an additional comment, just feel free to add some of the yellow post-its to the process. And I'm going to ask Jessica to add more or Roberto to add more of the yellow post-its, because I must say that this is the meeting, the digital meeting, the virtual meeting that has provided the most written comments that I've ever seen. So that's actually really good. So if I may zoom in to some of these so that we can all see them. Deeper levels of affordability is one item that was linked to card number 1. That sites are in short supply as much as possible, please. Under number 3, which talks about safe routes for bicyclists and pedestrians, slow down cars in favor of bikes and peds. So that links to card number 5, which is traffic safety. That has another note over here. Reducing traffic volumes and speed also improves local pollution noise. Yeah, that's a good linkage to card number 6, which is sustainability, which got less dots than the rest, but not by no means does that mean that this is to be relegated. And we have a series of comments at the bottom saying, I value public agencies leasing land to receive large revenue streams through ground rents by maximizing housing units. Again, a comment linked to affordable housing. The next one is, I valued mixed-use development with active ground floor uses. So this is what we also like to see, so that it is always active, and it's a link to this notion of personal safety and comfort. Again, another comment under number 9 is about I value affordable housing. and I value connection to the surrounding neighborhood, for example, Campbell Plaza and Industrial Street. Yes, the next exercise is about connections to the surroundings, so you'll have a chance to do so. With that, I think that we're gonna stop with this exercise. Clearly, item number 1 is affordability. But I'm wondering if someone from VTA, from the city, the county, or from the consultant team has any additional observation. Otherwise, we'll move to the second exercise.
I'll just add, this was great participation, so thank you all.
Yeah, this was really great. This was really great. So let me return back to my links here. We will now focus on exercise number 2, which is called challenges and opportunities. Like the other exercise, we will put a link in the chat window that looks like the one here at the bottom. What you would want to do for the second exercise is to, again, click on that link, and same thing as in the other exercise. You will be assigned an animal avatar. Let's see what I get this time. I get a visiting crab. You can type in your name or not, and you will be taken to the canvas or to the board, to the virtual board that you see on my screen. Let me make it bigger so that we can all see it. It has a map, as you can see. It has. Oops, let me zoom out if this lets me. Oh, it doesn't let me zoom out there. It has a map of the station area, the one that Roberto explained before. And on the left, you can see a series of dot stickers that are also movable that illustrate categories of challenges and categories of opportunities in red and green, respectively. We're going to go through them in detail. In terms of the station area itself, the 2 circles illustrate how far the walking distance is from the site, which is centered south of St. Lucy's Parish and St. Lucy's School, and north of the Summerwinds Nursery, exactly where the bus loop is currently, and across the street from Campbell Plaza, where the Safeway is. So the first circle illustrates a quarter-mile distance, which is what you traditionally would walk in about 5 minutes, and the outer circle illustrates a half-mile radius, which is something that it would take you about 10 minutes to go from that circle to the site and to the station. So before we post the link on the chat window, let me go through the different challenge categories that we've set up for this exercise. I will zoom in to them. The first one is a lack of safe sidewalks and bike lanes. So they are not there, or they are very unsafe. The second is specifically for people with accessibility issues. For example, is there an accessibility barrier that prevents it or makes it very difficult for people with wheelchairs or strollers to go and to get from one point to the other? Number 3 is to indicate a street with high traffic congestion and or fast traffic. Number 4 is a street with no climate protection against the sun or the rain. And number 5 is a neighborhood with no amenities. So it may be all residential, all commercial, but there's no community amenities. And we added a blank red one for other categories of challenges that we may have missed. In terms of the opportunities, the green stickers, the first one is where you see an opportunity to create safe walking and cycling connections. Number 2 is where you feel that an addition of a new street link or a bridge over a river or for a freeway would be important and would go a long way to connect two important destinations. Number 3 is where you see the potential for shared mobility services, like, for example, bike share, scooter share, car share, etc. Number 4 is where you see the potential for community character enhancement. For example, a place that is really important, where you would that is in and around the station, that where you feel like there's the potential to really make a statement and make it part of the identity of Campbell. And the final one here is the opportunity for the creation of a public space or an open space that may be in the site, very close to the site, or near the site, but in close proximity. And again, we've added a 6th one, just a blank green one. And if you want to add any comments, you can again drag any one of these post-its. Again, what's important here is both the type of challenge and opportunity and the location. So think about where you would want to place them. Again, a reminder for this one in particular is using the plus or the minus buttons and the left click and drag the mouse so that you can actually look at the locations where you may want to look in more detail in a more zoomed in fashion. With that, I'll ask Roberto to again to paste the link into the chat. Here you are not limited to four. You can put as many as you want, but clearly identify where do you see the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities for the project and around the project, because this is important. This is important to indicate. We're already seeing some action from participants putting some red stickers, and I'm already seeing that Winchester Boulevard appears to be a street with a lot of traffic, or a lot of traffic volumes, particularly in front of the station area, as we're seeing. So there might be some alignment in what people are thinking. Again, if you're not participating on the digital canvas, or you're uncomfortable doing so, feel free to use the chat, and one member of our team will be collecting that information, and we can place either a post-it or a colored sticker for you. We'll let the exercise run for a minute or two until everyone has a chance to place their stickers and add some comments. It's interesting. We've seen some linear clustering of stickers in many of the exercises we've run, both in the Bay Area and even internationally. But I've never seen so many stickers aligned along a single road like over here. So this is clearly an indication that Winchester's Boulevard will need to be many issues along Winchester Boulevard will need to be addressed. Primarily, from what I can see, let me zoom in for those of you that are participating and just looking at the action. Particularly, it's about, and they are overlapping, so you can barely see them. But they fall into three categories, primarily about high traffic volumes and speeds, so congestion. So car traffic is an issue. Missing or unsafe sidewalks and bike lanes. And there were some about the climate conditions of walking under the sun or the rain, no climate protection. It appears that there is also traffic in the neighborhood to the west of the station and on Winchester Boulevard. There appear to be a lot of the green stickers about linkages over the 17. I believe it's the 17 freeway. And you can see already a concentration of green stickers about pedestrian connections, character, shared mobility services in and around the station and where the project is going to be. It also appears that the shopping center across the street, I believe it's called Campbell Plaza, where the Safeway is an opportunity for character improvement. Probably many of these comments have to do with a parking lot that is not necessarily the nicest location when you live there, and probably needs to be enhanced in tandem with what's happening on the main road. And we're seeing some comments, some written comments already appearing. So that's clearly something that we will take into consideration, and we will discuss with whoever the developer is that is included as part of this project. Let's. There's one comment on the chat. Jessica, if you could transcribe that and post it with that comment so that we have it all consolidated in one site. And of course, this exercise is recorded as part of the whole process, but we will produce a final output of what was said in a PDF format after the exercise is finished.
And we got a couple of others through private chat that we're also taking note of.
Oh, thank you, Roberto. You were paying more attention to the chat than I was. I think that my commentary before hasn't changed. There's nothing substantially new from what I can see. Most of the stickers are concentrated within the 5-minute walk distance, which is good, because that means that the project can have, as part of its own components and design, incorporate many of these aspects, but also where you can concentrate public action by the city and by others on areas adjacent to the project itself.
Oliver, one area that caught my mind is I see a lot of the opportunities to create safe walking and cycling connections and the potential for community character enhancement. All of those clustered along the south part, like south of the site between Campbell Plaza going down on Winchester.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, that's
I would have expected that to be heading north towards downtown, but it looks like there's a strong desire to also improve that heading south.
That's a good insight. Yes, interesting. Any other comment by anybody else from the team or from the city or from VTA? Otherwise, I think that we're getting to the end of the exercise pretty soon.
Oliver, would you mind just zooming in and reading a couple of the Post-it notes that are on there?
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Oops, I don't want to move those. So let's see. For example, direct connection to Guadalupe Trail via Camden, a new path along the railway to avoid Winchester. Winchester is too high speed. Opportunity, direct connection to Trail +1. The Campbell Technology Park is being considered for housing. A link to Winchester or downtown would make it much better. The challenge is noise and pollution from the 17 freeway. Missed opportunity for dedicated connection to apartment complex next to Winchester Station and Transit Center itself. Yeah, that's clearly, I can see it from the pattern. Let's see what else. Connections to Industrial Street or Railway Avenue via path along the railway. Let me move this a little bit if I can, but I can't. I think there was someone is writing that, so that's why I can't move that. Campbell Plaza needs serious work. So from what you read of the comments, which are all really good, this is local knowledge exemplified. Many of them have to do with connections. So a common theme, it appears to be, that people are clear that this is not only about the project, about the affordable housing, but also how the station area and the people living in the affordable housing and the communities around it can connect to main destinations. For example, the trails, there's many mentions of the trails cross the freeway, and about the urban character, or perhaps the lack of urban character of Campbell Plaza. I think that with that, I want to make sure to give enough space for the questions at the end of our meeting. So I'm going to stop the sharing of this exercise. It's a really interesting result, and we'll take all this information and analyze it, and this will feed into the process, as has been said multiple times. So let me stop sharing, and I'll turn it over to Jolene, who will continue with the rest of the program.
So we'd now like to take the time to turn it over for questions and answers. So if you have any questions on, if you've had any questions on what we've presented today, or you have any questions that just haven't been answered, we're going to ask you to go ahead and raise your hand. You can also put it in the chat. So to raise your hand, you can go to the reactions. If you tap on the reaction, it says raise hand. So let's go ahead and we can begin the questions. So is there anybody with the raised hand? Let me get there.
Yeah, I see a couple.
So Ryan, I noticed that you have a question.
Yeah, so this is really exciting. So I'm really glad that VTA and Campbell and the county are doing this. I've lived twice near the Green Line, once near Race, now near Diridon. I moved to those places to be near the light rail because it's super awesome, especially between Campbell and downtown San Jose and Diridon. So very exciting. So I was wondering, I want as many people as possible to be able to live here. So I was wondering, what's the possible range for how many homes could be built on this site?
That's a good question. Jocelyn, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So generally, we like our sites to have a minimum of 75 units an acre, which is in line with what the city is looking at with their housing plan. But as you know, this site is constrained in terms of size, and we do want to retain the bus circulation as well as all the transit parking that's currently there. So we are looking at, I would say, between 75 to 130 units total.
Great, thank you.
And then we have another question on chat. If I can get there, it just moved away from it. It's Maria, and she's asking if the recording of this meeting will be available to us. And it will. It is actually on YouTube Live right now. And we will make sure that it's available on the project page, as well as the presentation will be available as well. So let's go ahead and I will. Next person. Sorry. Okay, sorry about this. I'm just having a problem with getting that. Chris, you have a question?
Sure. Thank you so much for having this meeting. I really appreciate the outreach, and the area in Winchester is a great candidate for work. I honestly am following up on Ryan's question in terms of the number of units and exactly where that's going to be. I'm a Campbell resident, very familiar with Summerwinds, very familiar with the Winchester station. So where is this going to get wedged? And then is it going to expand possibly to other spots? Is Summerwinds a prospect for construction, and will there be other work on the other side of Winchester?
Jocelyn, do you want to handle that?
Yeah, sure. So we do anticipate being able to accommodate all of the uses on site. I believe I just saw another question come through in the chat about height. And really all of, height and unit count will be up to the developers, and we'll see those come through as we get proposals. But I think we could anticipate something between 4 to 5 stories. And we would be able to accommodate, the 4 to 5 story building, as well as bus circulation and parking on site. If our neighbors wanted to talk about a partnership, we would talk about that once we have a developer on board.
Okay, and then Jocelyn, I'm gonna, from the chat, Adam's asked if we've considered using the density bonus for this development.
Yes, I think that our development partners would likely consider using that.
Okay, now let me go. Eugene, Kevin. I'll go to Kevin Cruwell. You have a question?
Yeah, actually, but it's kind of a follow on to what we've been talking about already. And that is trying to develop this on site and still maintain a station access and bus access. So it seems it's a very narrow site, and it is pretty heavily wedged in between the school, St. Lucy's, and also Summer Winds. And then you still have an active train track that goes up through to Cupertino as well. That can't afford to be developed past that. So it does seem like it's a difficult piece of property to develop. So I'll be interested to see how you guys propose that would work out. Even 4 to 5 stories and hit that kind of 75 units. It just seems to be a real challenge there.
Yeah, absolutely. As a transit agency, of course, it's important to us to maintain, transit access for bikes, pedestrians, as well as people who want to drive and park at the station. So that will definitely be a priority as we develop.
And then Nancy has a question in the chat. She says, wondering why it's not a mixed income, but rather only a low income. I thought VTA tries to have a blend of different levels. Also, what is the noise level with the light rail?
Yeah, so we definitely do try to have a mix of income amongst our different TOD projects. But as we were going over earlier with our affordable housing policy, we do aim to have 35% affordable units across our portfolio. And so in order to hit that threshold, we will have to have some sites that are higher percentage over our 20% minimum, including some that are even up to 100% affordable housing. And this is one of the sites that we partnered with the County Office of Supportive Housing. So with their partnership, it will be 100%. And in terms of noise level, that's definitely something that will have to be studied through the development. And of course, they will take that into consideration with residents.
Thank you. And then Eugene, you had a question?
Yes. I was wondering how much of the proposed development would also be reserved for those that are either seniors or disabled and in a wheelchair. The concern I have is that would there at least be some kind of either access for the disabled to actually be able to live in this housing in addition to the affordability, preferably either on a bottom floor or with elevator or escalator access to higher floors if needed?
Yeah, of course, we would definitely take into consideration all accessibility needs.
Okay. I'm just going down to see if there's new messages that haven't been answered on the chat.
Yes, looks like Jesse's been
pretty busy. And then there's a question. Kevin asked, have you looked at areas around Hamilton Station?
So our team has not, that station area has not been identified by our board as a TOD opportunity, but that's not to say that it couldn't be in the future. I'm not sure what our land is around that station.
Okay. And then
I'll just note that we don't have much land holding at that station. There wouldn't be enough room for a TOD development, but that doesn't mean that private owners couldn't develop TOD on their holdings in and around that station. I believe the station areas are focused as a part of the housing element for increased density for RENA allocation goals in the community based on the housing element. But Rob, do you have any feedback on that?
Hi, Rob Eastwood, Community Development Director. That is true. We in our housing element, we've designated high density development around both of these light rail stations. So they're generally at 75 dwelling units per acre. And again, if folks want more information, our senior planner, Stephen Rose, put in the chat a link to our website, and you can get more information on where those sites are at and the housing densities.
Thank you. Adam has asked, has VTA considered ground floor retail or other mixed use services and making the building a bit taller?
Yeah, so I think it will ultimately be up to developers who come in with their proposals. It is tougher to get retail in with 100% affordable housing as funding's limited. And we think that this site is a great TOD opportunity because there's already significant retail across the street.
Okay, thank you. Let me go down. So Alan has asked, do you have a breakdown on the various affordability levels, sorry, that would be used from very low to moderate?
Yeah, so we would be targeting the extremely low to low income categories for this in line with the Measure A funding. Consuelo or Natalie, if you'd like to add anything else about Measure A.
I think that's it. I think the actual affordability levels will depend on the proposals that are received. I think you nailed it, Jocelyn. Thanks.
And then I want to throw out that Stephen Rose, he just shared the general plan for the housing element, a link for that if you guys would like to look at that. And I'm not seeing any other questions. Oh, there is a hand raised. Let me get there. Ryan, you had another question?
Yes, I was wondering, I guess one question I've had is, how is ongoing, maintenance and operations for affordable housing projects funded? Are the rents collected high enough for that, or is there a subsidy coming from another source?
I'm thinking, Natalie, is this one of the ones that you would take, or would Jocelyn?
The question is about the maintenance of the housing, or?
Yeah, like especially as it ages, there'll need to be maintenance and upkeep and all that stuff.
Yeah, so as developers submit proposals to VTA, part of their proposal needs to include their financial pro forma. So they need to outline sources and uses for how they will build the actual building up front, but also they need to submit, I believe it's at least a 20-year cash flow showing how they're going to operate the building, and it accounts for maintenance, staffing, property management, everything goes into that budget. Including reserves for maintenance and basically the whole picture for operating the building.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. There is actually a question from Dorian, and he's asking, what is the future for the downtown Campbell station area?
Rob or Stephen? Want to touch on?
Well, a little more context on the question. So Campbell does have 3 light rail stations. For a long time, we've been planning for higher density housing, at least around the downtown station. I'll just say in this housing element, a little less so. There's a lot of smaller lots that are a little tougher to assimilate together and develop. And I'd say if you look at our proposed housing sites, they focus more on the other 2 stations, Hamilton and Winchester, where this site is. That's not to say those sites still have designations that allow redevelopment. We hope some development comes in there. It's perfect location. You got access to downtown, you got access to farmers market, you got access to light rail. But I just say historically, some of those sites have been a little harder to develop.
Perfect. I think that actually another one just came in. So let's see. Okay, if there was a business focus, one thing that is done in a couple of cities like Berlin is put the tracks on a viaduct and have businesses underneath. So that's what he's sharing. He's sharing that in Berlin they have, they do the tracks on a viaduct, and then they have the business underneath that. And I think I've gotten every question. So is there any more questions that you guys would like to ask? Oh, there's a new message. Let me get down there. Okay, let me see. So I'm hearing that there is a chat that says, I will have many questions for you, for all of you, to help me understand and gauge your perspective as well. And to the extent that I can offer practical insight from my own firsthand experience, I look forward to sharing it. Oops, sorry. Wrong question. Is it possible to acquire some of the parking lot next door at the church and move the bus loop over there? That's from Adam.
If a developer comes on and they're interested in that, and our neighbors are also interested in that discussion, we will definitely explore that.
Thank you. So it looks like we're we have, if there's any more questions, we'll go ahead and I'll ask again. If not, we can go ahead and move to end this meeting. Can we go to the next slide? Oh, nope, I see one more question. One more hand, that's perfect.
I think that was just a clap.
Oh, okay, that was a clap. Okay, perfect. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to come to our meeting this evening. We will still continue to engage the community. If you would like us to come and present at your neighborhood association or groups, we can do that. You can just, I'll give you the email, it's on the next slide, but it's community.outreach@vta.org. Another way that you can stay up to date with the project is to go to our website, and the email address is right there under the O1, and it's vta.org/Winchester Development, and sign up for the meeting updates. Go ahead and you just type your email address into the box. And then we also want to let you know that we have a community engagement survey, an after meeting survey that we'd really like you to participate in. And the address is right there on the box or the screen, and I am going to put it in the chat as well. Here you go. And if you guys would take that, that would be great. Next slide. Again, thank you all for coming. And if you have any more questions or comments, feel free to let us know. You can email us at community.outreach@vta.org. And if you would like us to come to do a presentation, you can also email us as well. So thank you so much for attending, and have a great night.